tell you the briefing the leader of the opposition will take. He'll take the same kind of briefing the Washington Post got on classified information from the National Security and Intelligence Advisor and the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. He'll take the same briefing that I got under Section 12.1 of the CSIS Act.
Right on the heels of Trudeau's caucus revolt meeting, he climbed into the lion's mouth as he faced off against Pierre Poilievre and Michael Chong in question period. Yes, you heard that right. The Michael Chong.
Let's take a look.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, costs up, taxes up, crimes up, and according to 24 Liberal MPs, time is up. This Prime Minister has doubled housing cost, doubled the national debt, given us the worst economy in the G7. He's paralyzed Parliament with a cover-up of corruption, and 2 million people are lined up at food banks, but he cannot fix what he broke because his caucus is revolting. Will he call a carbon tax election today?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, that's about how we expected Pierre to open question period, with a shot at the fact that Trudeau just had his little caucus meeting. So I think that sets the tone for how this is going to go.
Speaker, while the Leader of the Opposition is focused on politics, we're focused on delivering for Canadians the things that matter most, whether it's more money in their pockets with the Canada Carbon Rebate, more places at $10 a day childcare right across the country, dental care for seniors and more Canadians of all ages as we move forward to deliver things that are easing pressures on the pocketbooks and building a strong economy for everyone. This is the work that we're doing, that we will continue to do. While the Leader of the Opposition tosses around empty slogans and plays politics, we'll stay focused on the things that matter to Canadians.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So in short, we're just going to keep doing what we have been doing that hasn't worked for the last 9 years. We're going to keep increasing taxes. We're going to keep lying to Canadians about the amount of money that they're going to be getting back. And we're just going to continue on in our death spiral. That's what I heard.
That's what I heard too.
24 Liberal MPs went to his caucus today to tell him that he's not worth the crime, cost, or corruption. They wanted to tell him that he's doubled housing costs, doubled the national debt, sent 2 million people to the food banks, but he wouldn't let them. He silenced half of the dissidents. In fact, some were intimidated so much so that even Rosemary Barton, the Prime Minister's favorite journalist, said people don't have phones in the room and some people are going to the bathroom texting us. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister text those dissident Liberal MPs, tell them to come out of the bathroom and tell the whole world that he's not worth the cost?
Oh, that's so
Wow.
good.
The Liberal caucus members were not permitted cell phones in the caucus meeting, so they had to sneak out to the bathroom in order to text the journalists.
And it's... Pierre makes it sound like a joke, but it's actually accurate. Like, that's what was happening.
It's unthinkable.
It's...
Like, I can get, you know, things in caucus, you don't want them getting out into the public, that they're supposed to be private. But this seems very extreme to me.
Well, and for those interested, so, you know, we put out our earlier video giving everybody an update on what happened. A lot of people seem to think, oh, see, nothing happened. Actually, a lot happened, you know. And some people, for some reason, are actually believing Trudeau for the first time in 9 years when he says everything's fine. And my question to those people is, this is the first time you're choosing to believe in Justin Trudeau when he says that everything's fine.
Well, the look on Sean Casey's face didn't tell me that everything was fine.
Right. So there's actually some information that everybody needs to know that we actually learned since then. Let's take a look at that before we get back to question period.
We're going to begin today on that Liberal caucus meeting. We're learning more and more about what went down behind closed doors, including a deadline for Justin Trudeau to decide if he'll stay on as Liberal leader. Here to help bring us up to speed is CBC News chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton and Catherine Cullen, host of the CBC political podcast, The House. Thank you. It feels like only a few hours we were doing this. Catherine, let's start with the latest details we have about how this went down inside the room. We hear Patrick Weiler got things started. What do you know?
Yeah, well, in fact, the Prime Minister really got things started, David. According to sources, and we've all been speaking to folks who were inside the room, told his MPs this has been such a difficult time. He actually got emotional talking to MPs about the F Trudeau flags and the impact that's having on his children, saying, it's their last name too. Spoke about the need for party unity, saying that Liberals lose when they're not united. So sort of made that push. Then it was time for him to listen. As you say, our sources tell us that the first MP up to the mic was Vancouver MP Patrick Weiler. He read this letter aloud that we've been hearing so much about, the letter that says it's time, Prime Minister, for you to go, and setting a deadline, too, saying that by Monday, the Prime Minister has to decide what he is going to do. They were told that the letter was signed by 24 people. MPs did not get a copy of that letter, and in fact, we still don't know, and members of caucus don't know exactly who signed it, although some names have become public. Now, it didn't end with the letter signers, from what we understand. There's different estimates that we're getting from folks. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 MPs, perhaps more, got up and said it is time for the Prime Minister to go. There were others who stood up and defended the Prime Minister, although from what we're told, a smaller number. One MP said to me that the Prime Minister was told repeatedly, "You are the problem. People don't want to hear from you anymore." And this MP said, people pressing on that button over and over and over, it must have been bone-shattering for the Prime Minister to hear. Now, we have heard generally that the conversation was respectful, but obviously a difficult one, and that when the meeting wrapped, Trudeau spoke again. He said he's going to reflect, he's going to listen, but his inclination is to stay.
Okay. Rosie, it's interesting that when I spoke to someone who said when Patrick Weiler got up and read out the letter, it was like the end of Scooby-Doo when the mask comes off. You see who's behind it all, right? It was that sort of a reveal for them. What is the Prime Minister's office saying now? What are his people saying now? What do you think they're going to do after they've been confronted with this today?
It's a little bit unclear at this stage. I would say the first thing is that there was some surprise at the number of people who were expressing frustrations. It is surprising to me that would have been a surprise, but nonetheless, that is the truth. I think that they were very hung up on the fact that the letter that circulated did not have names attached to it, because as you've been reporting, it wasn't clear that was going to happen today. I think they took some comfort in that there are people still not willing to publicly say what they are willing to put on paper and demand on paper. It's not clear to me how or if they will respond by Monday. I suppose some sort of response is needed. But given that, as Catherine rightly points out, this is a deadline as opposed to a clear threat or ultimatum, I think it is hard for the Prime Minister's office to respond and hard to know how this group of people will respond too. If the Prime Minister comes back and says, I'm staying, and here are some of the things that we're willing to do, is that enough to convince these people to down tools? I honestly don't know. And from what you guys have been saying to me as well, it's very, very unclear what next steps are.
So you had a couple dozen people stand up and say, yep, that's not going to happen. And you need to go. The problem is you. It's almost, getting deja vu with Mercedes Stephenson. Nobody likes you. So yeah, imagine Justin Trudeau in his ego, in his hubris, having to sit there and repeatedly hear this over and over again. There, to be a fly on the wall and just watch his facial expressions in that. In terms of the the F Trudeau flags and everything like that, I understand the point about how it may affect his kids, because his kids share the last name of him, right? They didn't ask to be Justin Trudeau's kids, but they are. That's about the only issue that I have with that, because you don't get to choose who your parents are, and you don't get to choose who your last name is when you're a kid. That's the unfortunate part. So they have to kind of see this every day. But in terms of Justin Trudeau, he himself has earned the vitriol that Canadians have for him, because you have literally destroyed this country, and you don't want to acknowledge that one bit. So there's a deadline of Monday. What happens then? That'll be interesting to see, but from all accounts, Justin Trudeau's not intending on stepping down, which leads us back to what Ken McDonald was saying the other day is, when a confidence vote comes, what are you going to do? Do you vote with the Liberals? Because that kind of counteracts what you've been telling everybody, and it counteracts what your constituents want you to do. So do you abstain? Maybe that's the way to go to be safe. And then that opens the door for potentially the Conservatives and the Bloc to topple this government.
Well, and the next question is, when is there going to be a confidence vote? The government cannot currently put any business through the House. That means any supply bills that they have, which are confidence bills by default, they can't push through. Okay, so the government can't start a confidence vote. But what about the opposition? Well, the Conservatives have, how many was it, 5 days left?
They have 3 days left.
3 days left, and the NDP has 1 day
Correct.
left. So there's 4 opposition days left where confidence votes could be put forward, but they're not scheduled yet. That's up to House Leader Karina Gold. Now, she could schedule some between now and the end of October. She could schedule some anytime in November, or she could wait until the absolute last possible moment and schedule them for the end of the term in December, which would be mid-December. So when is the next confidence vote?
Well, and here's the thing. Strategically, if you're the Liberals, I don't think you can bet on having a confidence vote anytime soon, because you're ticking off the Bloc. As of Monday, you know, the Bloc's deadline is up. Let's get real. The Bloc's deadline was
Is already
2
up,
weeks ago.
yeah.
But, you know, as of the official deadline, that's next week. And you have the NDP that, you know, are shuffling a little further away from the Liberals with each passing day. So, you know, who knows what they're going to do. And then you have the Rebel caucus. So, and the NDP has to keep an eye on this Rebel caucus as well, right? Because they want to be the ones to topple this government. But what if they wait too late and it's the Rebel caucus that topples this government? They've lost all leverage going into that election. You've literally accomplished nothing by ripping up that confidence and supply agreement.
And let's face it, this government is not working for Canadians. The government cannot put any business forward. So really, it's going to be who finishes the race first, right? Is it going to be the Liberals that pull the plug on Parliament and we go to election? Is it going to be an opposition motion that comes forward and we go to election? Or is it going to be somehow, I don't think this is likely, but somehow that the government is able to put work forward in the House again, and then they put forward a supply bill that then topples the government with a confidence vote?
Well, and with regard to that, that is extremely unlikely. And why is that unlikely? Because right now
The House is seized.
the House is gridlocked, and you know, the Conservatives are keeping their motion or their question of privilege alive because they keep adding amendments to it, which grants them control of the House. And the Bloc and the NDP have no intention of siding with the Liberals in order to stop that. The Liberals could stop that by introducing a motion of closure to close debate and move it along. However, they need either the Bloc or the NDP to vote with them. And there's no indication that's going to happen, because if that happened, those opposition parties would then be lambasted as helping the Liberals essentially cover up this corruption and not handing the documents over to the RCMP. So this will go indefinitely. And if by some chance, let's say the NDP do decide to vote with the Liberals to end the debate, guess what's coming right after that? Another question of privilege related to Stephen Anderson in relation to Randy Boissonneau. And then that is going to take weeks and weeks and weeks of debate. You can bet on that. So this government is dead. It is paralyzed. There will be no more government business. I'm very confident in saying that. So it's just a matter of, Liberals, do you wait for the confidence vote, or are you going to call an election? That's basically their choice. Anyway, let's get back to question period.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in our caucus, people have always been free to speak their mind and have different perspectives. What is interesting, Mr. Speaker, is nobody in the Conservative Conservative caucus seems to have spoken out when one of their members got an all-expenses-paid trip to an extreme anti-abortion church in Florida. Nobody spoke out. Well, one of the members on their front bench went and dined with white nationalists, far-right German nationalists, and nobody spoke up and is continuing to speak up when their leader refuses to get a security clearance so he can deal with foreign interference.
Classic distraction. It's like when your parent is mad at you, and if you have siblings, you're like, well, that's nothing. Look at what my sibling did like yesterday and a month ago and 2 years ago, etc., etc., etc. Remember all those bad things? Like, that's what Trudeau is acting like as a spoiled child.
Yeah, but the funny thing here is he's saying, oh, well, you know, he had an MP that had an all expense paid trip to you know, go and explore, you know, a political event in a view that I disagree with. And another person, you know, went and had a trip to have dinner with somebody that has a political view that I really disagree with. Okay, but neither of them were ethics violations, were they? Neither of them used taxpayer money to take these vacations. Neither of them used $6,000 a night and then caused an international embarrassment when you started singing like a drunken idiot before the Queen's funeral, did they? Oh. And neither of these were trips to, you know, the Aga Khan, you know, island where, you know, there's like human trafficking and like crap going on. So a little different, Trudeau. But if you want, we can talk about all of those things if you like. But this is it. The Conservatives are pretty squeaky clean. And he has nothing. So this is what he's trying to do. And that's the difference. He actually proved that Pierre's MPs actually do have the freedom to explore their own political views. That's the difference. And the Liberals don't. So you kind of owned yourself in the face on that one.
Well, that was more to scare the voters, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. But guess what? You're not going to agree with every single MP in a party that you support.
The important part is, when I vote for this individual, are they going to go to Ottawa and cast their vote in the House of Commons that is in my best interest, in my family's best interest, in the best interest of my business? That's the question you should be asking when you go to the ballot box and put that X on that ballot.
Yeah. Are they going to be lowering crime? Are they going to be cutting taxes? Are they going to be making life more affordable, making my life safer, and allowing me to actually buy a house at some point? Those are the main issues. The rest of it is just window dressing, new service, or see, Trudeau's got me all messed up right now. It's just a complete distraction.
The honourable member from Burnaby South.
I recognize that the Prime Minister is distracted, but there's a recent survey that's come out that shows that over half of Canadians are having a hard time with the cost of groceries. Now, too many in this chamber are more worried about themselves than kids going to sleep hungry in our country. Yeah. Why has this Prime Minister refused to take action on painful food prices?
Hear, hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have taken action and will take more action. We move forward on increasing competition rules so that the Competition Bureau can go after people who are and companies that are gouging Canadians, at the same time as we're delivering more supports, whether it's with the National School Food Program that's putting more money in the pockets of families by giving them breaks on their groceries so kids can actually eat healthy foods at schools, or delivering a Canada carbon rebate. Unfortunately, that carbon rebate that puts more money in families' pockets has just seen the NDP pull their support from it, even though it's helping Canadians with affordability, and we will continue to be there to fight climate change.
Then I have the
Gentleman member for Burnaby South.
Have you ever been to a grocery store?
It's pretty wild when you see one hypocrite calling another hypocrite out on their hypocrisy.
But don't you remember, Jackie went to the grocery store and bought like 2 of the most expensive items because apples were out of season and didn't even know whether they were apples or potatoes?
I was gonna say, I thought he bought a bag of potatoes. Bag of potatoes.
A sack of potatoes, 1 bag of potatoes, 1 bag of potatoes.
1 bag of potatoes.
I thought that's what he bought.
Seriously,
anyway.
though, like the problem with the Liberals is they treat the symptom and not the cause. They say, what is it? 25% of students are going to school hungry. And instead of saying, why are they going to school hungry? Oh, it's because food prices are too expensive because we've raised the carbon tax so much, and it raises the price on farmers and on the trucks that bring the items to the grocery store. And that's all passed down to the consumer, right? So instead of saying, oh, we caused this problem, they go, we need to spend more tax money to make sure that we provide students with lunches at school, instead of going, maybe we should cut the taxes so that parents can provide lunches for their students, their children.
They're snake oil salesmen.
Yeah.
It's like, here, I'm going to give you, this remedy that actually does nothing, but it gives you another problem. And then when you come back, I'm going to give you something else to actually resolve that problem, but it's going to introduce a new problem, and then it keeps going.
Prime Minister like to go grocery shopping together, Mr. Speaker. And if you had, you would know that, of course, food prices have risen 36% faster in Canada than they did in the United States during the last 4 years, and that gap grew in line with the carbon tax. The leader of the NDP apparently likes to shop at Metro, for which his brother's company is the chief lobbyist. So maybe the leader of the NDP can tell us. 24 Liberal MPs have lost confidence in the Prime Minister. Will the leader of the NDP finally vote for a carbon tax election?
Oh, he walked into that one, that's for sure. And that was a great pivot by Pierre.
Absolutely. And this is what I mean when I say that Justin Trudeau and Freeland just kind of have their talking points already scripted and they bring it into question period, whereas Pierre thinks on his feet.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there wasn't a question for the government in that, but let me reiterate that multiple analysts, economists, and the Parliamentary Budget Officer have indicated that lowering inflation has made it easier on Canadians, and the price on pollution that delivers the Canada carbon rebate to Canadians right across the country and puts more money in their pockets is that.
Okay, I'm not going to let that disaster continue.
Thank you for sparing us all.
Really, Liberals? This is your guy? This is the guy?
This is the guy. Well, to be fair, some of them are trying to get rid of him.
Well, after that performance, I would hope that motivates, even more of them. But this is the thing. Trudeau is getting it from all angles. He doesn't even have his buddies, the NDP, leaving him alone anymore.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, even Liberal MPs know now, because their constituents keep telling them, that the carbon tax is driving up the cost of food. They wanted to go to caucus today and tell the Prime Minister that Canadians are literally starving, some eating out of dumpsters because of the carbon tax. But he sent out his immigration minister to attack them, saying that they are, quote, garbage. What's garbage is the Prime Minister's record doubling housing costs, driving up food prices, and forcing people to eat out of dumpsters. Will he stop treating his own MPs and Canadians like garbage?
Brilliant chess move here. This may seem like just simple theory to everybody, but there's so many calculated chess moves that are going on. And we talked about this possibility a few days ago in what would Pierre do in question period once this happened. So this question is designed to further drive a wedge between the Rebel caucus and Justin Trudeau. The Rebel caucus may or may not have known that Mark Miller was calling them garbage, in one of his recent press conferences, but now they do know that he was calling them garbage. And they're gonna think, okay, so Mark Miller is a very close friend of Justin Trudeau. We know he hangs out at his house after work, so they would have talked about this. And this is what you're seeing. So you have Pierre now trying to almost side a little bit with the Rebel caucus, just for the purposes of driving that wedge right between them and introducing that much more friction in the Liberal Party. It is most likely not a fun time to be Justin Trudeau right now.
Is it ever?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I think the leader of the Conservative Party shouldn't be bragging that none of his MPs have asked him to get a security clearance so that he can actually protect his party from foreign interference. That none of his MPs have spoken out. That having one of their members go down to Florida on an all-expenses-paid trip by an extreme anti-abortion church is just fine for all of their MPs. And that, quite frankly, none of them have any issue with a member on their front bench dining with a neo-Nazi. Mr. Speaker, I would hope some of his members in his caucus would speak up about some of the problems.
And I ask the honourable member from Wellington Halton Hills to please not speak out of turn repeatedly during this question. He's an honourable and very well-respected member.
All right. Who is the Member of Parliament for Wellington Halton Hills?
Who is also a very honorable and respected member.
That would be Mr. Michael Chong. Mr. Michael Chong, who has had the entire country of China, or rather the government of China, I should say, interfering and threatening his family because of how he voted in the House of Commons and wasn't told by the Liberals until 2 years later. This is Michael Chong. Michael Chong is usually a really stoic, calm, cool individual, but not today, because he is tired of these lies that Justin Trudeau and the other Liberals are talking about when they're talking about Pierre getting this security clearance, and that, you know, this is the only way that he can do it.
Well, and the problem is that unfortunately there are Canadians who are believing it.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think he wanted to take a stand, and I think he did.
He definitely did. And, you know, Wednesdays is usually the Conservatives have Pierre stand and the Liberals have Justin Trudeau stand. Something happened today that didn't follow that pattern.
The honourable member from Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you the briefing the leader of the opposition will take. He'll take the same kind of briefing the Washington Post got on classified information from the National Security and Intelligence Advisor and the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. He'll take the same briefing that I got under Section 12.1 of the CSIS Act, threat reduction measures to reduce threats to the security of Canada. He'll take the same classified briefing that the Prime Minister has been all too willing to give to this House when it suits him, such as the classified information he revealed about Mr. Najjar's killing a year ago and other classified information revealed in the last several weeks about India. That's the kind of briefing the leader of the opposition will take.
Wow.
So, yeah, when someone that has such a stoic nature
and also such a stellar reputation in the House, he's not only respected by his own caucus, the Conservatives, Michael Chong is respected by that entire House.
Yeah, even the Liberals, even the NDP, everybody. And for him to, I'll say, you know, lose his cool, but in a controlled manner, you know, that's a statement. And kudos to the entire Liberal Party, or sorry, to, what am I saying? Kudos to the entire Conservative Party for standing up and having his back, you know, right after that that statement, because it wasn't really a question. And if you're Michael Chong, how do you blame him? He's felt firsthand,
right,
this denial of the Liberals regarding foreign interference and the lies and all of it.
And not only that, but, you know, Pierre's trying to stand up for him. Pierre's trying to protect him. And then you have the Liberals and Justin Trudeau trying to just drag Pierre through the mud about the fact that he won't get the clearance for this particular case, starting rumors that he can't get clearance or that he's refusing it.
He's hiding something.
He's hiding something. Just all these ridiculous things to try to smear the character of Pierre Poilievre, this man who is standing up for you. Like, that would be enraging.
And I think it just shows the camaraderie as well between the members of the Conservative Party, in that they respect Pierre as their leader so much that Michael Chong stood up and he said, no, it's my turn to protect you, boss.
And, you know, we get a sense of that when we speak to them. Like, when we speak to the different MPs, you can tell that, like, they genuinely enjoy each other's company. They genuinely enjoy working as part of a team. And they all respect Pierre.
Well, and they all know what's at stake in Canada.
Yeah.
And they all know what their job is going to be once they form government. Like, they want it now so they can start fixing the country now. So, you know, it was a pretty crazy question period. I'm not gonna add insult to injury by showing you the response to that, because I think this is all you needed to hear.
Yeah, we don't care what Trudeau has to say to that.
But you know, I think the Conservatives showed a lot of character today, in how they, you know, stood up for each other. You know, Pierre unleashed some new attacks on Trudeau. Trudeau did get a pretty good zinger in on Pierre, but I can't remember actually where it was, and that would require me showing you more of Justin Trudeau. So, but
yeah,
I
we'll
give
pass.
I give credit where credit's due. He had a pretty good zinger on Pierre, but okay, well, you know, 1 out of 100 ain't bad, I guess. So, so that was question period today, folks, and that's crazy. And God, as we keep going through this week, it's tick-tock. You have the Quebec block deadline heading up. Now you have a new deadline on this rebel caucus.
Both on Monday.
And now Trudeau has to deal with more unpopular support coming from his actual own voter base that are registered Liberal Party members as a result of that new petition. So he's getting it from everywhere, folks. We can only hope that an election happens sooner than later, with Pierre facing off against Justin Trudeau.